you are listening to the Kinetic Man Podcast. I'm Stuart.
And I'm David, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living a life defined by uncommon action that is full of purpose, adventure, and meaningful relationships. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours, and together achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to leave the potential life behind and become kinetic men.
And one of the things that David and I love most about podcasting is the incredible conversations and the advice that we get from our guests. Honestly, I truly believe it's the one thing that has made the most impact on me for my personal growth. And what you may not realize is that David and I oftentimes get a ton of free advice before and after the show, spanning from different topics between investing, parenting advice, how to create an epic marriage, health, tips and tricks, and much, much more. Unfortunately for you listeners, we've been a bit selfish and we haven't shared all of that sage advice with you guys, but that's coming to an end. Over the past 3 months, we've started to ask and record this one question to all of our podcast guests. What is the one action step that you recommend taking to level up in your business and in your personal life? And the answers have been life-changing. So the question is, would you be interested in hearing those same answers? We're calling it Leveling Up with TKM, and we want to share it with you. Only for $2 a month, you'll get 4 recorded videos every month in your inbox with those answers to the question that we just asked. And here's how you get it. Go to thekineticman.com/level up. Again, that's thekineticman.com/level up. Sign up today, get those videos, and go take uncommon action. All right, Kevin. Dude, I don't even know how to introduce you except for you're my arch rival from my nemesis high school in Texas. Is that a good way to start?
It's a great way to start.
Yeah. Guys, we had Kevin Goodnight on our podcast a couple months ago, and he is a new author, wrote a book called DadVoted, and it's honestly a fantastic book. David and I just scoured it and like crushed it and have put a ton of implementation in from the book, and he's on a roll, and look, he's got a huge stack there in the back, and he's having people donate them to charities, to military PTSD Foundation, and like just amazing stuff going on. And we wanted to have him on and just talk about one, Kevin, your journey, and then kind of how we are becoming devoted dads in 2024. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and you have the floor, my man.
Yeah, man. Let's start with good news. How about that?
Let's do it.
I got a buddy, best friend of mine, 46 years old, Stuart, great name, right? And stage 4 colon cancer for the last year. And we just got a text 5 minutes ago that he's 100% cancer free, dude.
Oh, dang.
Stage 4 and took it on like a beast. So my walk downstairs and my wife was emotional in a good way. So love to start out with good news, man. That's just
awesome.
What a battle he's been on. And then just a shout out to you guys. Like I said, Stuart, just the power of LinkedIn. We connected, not even knowing that that we grew up 8 miles away from each other,
Yeah.
and that you tried to date all the girls I was trying to date, and
Probably true.
and that we dominated y'all in football, but y'all took us down in baseball. But it's what the power of LinkedIn and the power of connection, and then the power of this brotherhood of fatherhood, that we're all on a mission together to just be a little bit better. Some of us need some massive shifts. Some of us just need to be just a little bit better. And that's what we'll talk about. But really, really quickly about me, because I can't share how to be a devoted dad if I don't share how the journey became. So bear with me. I try to tell the story in under 5 minutes, but it's so rich to show how God can pull you out of the depths of darkness and kick you in the face so that you begin walking a path of obedience. But basic stuff, live in Houston, Texas, in the suburbs, married to my bride, Keely. We met in college at Baylor, been together ever since, married 17 years, and in the throes of fatherhood, got a 13-year-old boy and a 10-year-old boy, and just rolling along with life and the punches of raising, little warriors, man. And so excited to and excited for the path of where I was 2 years ago versus where I am today, and even where I was 10 years ago. And so I'll hopefully share some hope. But long story short, Dad voted book, mission, ministry, mission, whatever you want to call it. It started with a vision. I woke up in the middle of the pandemic and I told my wife, I said, look, the Lord just told me he's going to show up big this year. And my response was, how? I just laid off 35%, 30% of my staff. My income's down 30%. We're drinking every night. It's a frat party in our street. And it was just, how could he show up during this, this time? And during that lowly season, I was journaling and I went back and was looking back at journals, my journal entries. And not that I was an avid writer by any means. I was journaling and just saw so much good. And through every adversity, losing a job to the factory shutting down, to and having a baby number one on the way, to baby number two coming, and we moved across the country. And I told my wife, I said, I feel like I have a book inside me, but who writes books? I got a lot to teach these kids. And long story short, go through the year of the pandemic and nothing happens, and get to December and I decided to go on a fast for 10 days to strip alcohol out of my life. That was the one thing that I would say was holding me back. 10 days in, nothing happened. Okay, I said, man, the Lord says he's going to show up, that I believe he's going to show up. 11 more days go by and we go to a wedding and we're at this venue, 150 people. You have to almost put yourself in this place of the first party we had been to. And we sit at this table and 25 tables are packed full of 8 to 10 people. And our table has this one couple and they're very awkward. They're eating under their mask and wouldn't talk to us. On top of that, they're Nigerian, very thick accent, can't understand them. And we get to the end of that dinner and she looks at me and she says, I just want to tell you, you're going to write a book one day and it's going to impact the kingdom. And I looked at her and I looked at my wife and I said, is that the Lord showing up? And she said, absolutely. And so here it is. I get this calling and I walk out of there on cloud nine. And for the next 10 months, I do absolutely nothing with it. Complete disobedience, drinking 6 nights a week, working as hard as I can, trying to grow this business back, toxic leadership in place at the office, and just in a really bad spot. And fast forward 10 months, I start journaling a little bit more, writing an outline, and a couple, 2 or 3 more divine appointments where the Lord basically showed up and said, you've got to remove this stronghold if you want to walk with me in your purpose. And so long story short, after, I mean, I've told the story on y'all's podcast. You have to find that episode, but it's divine appointment after divine appointment of texting a guy I hadn't seen in 5 years. And he said, hey, we're going to be at your church tomorrow. Why don't we meet? To one of my office employees telling me that I needed to break the curse of alcoholism in my family or it would travel to my kids. I'd leave, get in the car. My podcast says how to attack the curses of generational sin in your life. So these things just continue to hit. And long story short, I'm writing this book, still drinking every night, but it's pretty good. I'm like, okay, we got something here. In August, I had an accountability check in with a buddy and started tracking my alcohol intake, and it was shocking. And August 21st of 22, I checked myself into a faith-based recovery. And dude, I think we're sitting at like 520 days, man, of sobriety. Haven't even thought about it other than some moments here and there. And just the mission and vision has just exploded. And just to back up to that point, on day one of sobriety, the Lord said just to wait. And I said, okay, I can wait. Had this book, about 15% of a manuscript done, and it was good, and no name, and naming a book's hard. And on day 40, I just said, Lord, what am I going to call this? And he said, DadVoted. I said, DadVoted, devoted dads, and developing devoted dads. And as you get to know me through this call, I speak in alliteration, so hopefully that jives with you guys. I've got alliteration and acronyms. Otherwise, I can't remember. I can't remember anything. But day 40, he gives me the name DadVoted, and scared to death. I Google it. It pops up. A week later, I've got a trademark lawyer. I've got a website. I've got a book name. And 4 months later, I've got a manuscript to the publisher. And 5 months after that, we've got a published book. And DadVoted, dads devoted to discovering their duty, direction, and destiny. And really just I just prayed for the name of a book. And the Lord said, I'm going to give you that mission and that ministry. And I'm going to give you a movement. And man, the sky's the limit of what's next in this movement for dads. My identity has been reframed and changed from generic to specific. And then again, like I said, just so pumped to be linked with like-minded men like you guys. So that's the dad voted in a nutshell.
Yeah, dude. I love it, man. Love the story. Um, it's pretty cool what God could do for you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So really, I think the call today is, now that we've gotten to this dad voted stance, is what's next, right? And and that's the, I think that you called it, and this was actually a challenge to me, man. And it says how to be a dad voted dad in 24. And I don't know. I have, if are you guys one that, pray for a word for the year? Some people pray for a word or a phrase or a slogan. I know that's something I've done the last 3 years. So let me share the last 3 years. 2022, the word movement was given to me. So when I get the word movement, I'm a dude. I think, okay, I'm moving jobs, right? I'm moving houses. I'm moving. I had a job opportunity in Austin, didn't pay, and I'm like, okay, we're moving to Austin. Um, but during that time, God moved in my heart. He moved and changed my life, changed me from the sobriety movement to, and gave me that new identity. So I stayed physically put while God was moving. So that was my word for 2022. And for 2023, the word was bold. And I was a people pleaser by nature, very scared to launch Dad Voted with my career and didn't really want to. I barely had a following on LinkedIn or anything. And so the word bold came in 23, and I went at it pretty hard, and bold prayers, bold movement to launch a book, launch a business, an LLC with Dad Voted. And this year, kind of a challenge. Thank you, Stu, for just the challenge. I just prayed over the word, and the word that came to me was refine. And I just couldn't get my head around the word refine, and I love the word. And so, and I think it's kind of a twofold word. We refine something, it's making fine tweaks, just adjustments, enhancements, trying to boost something to make it just a little bit better. I think all of us, even if we're on this call, we're not bad dads. I mean, you're on this call, you're already a step ahead of probably 95% of the dads. But how can we be just a little bit better? How do we shift from thinking about today only to thinking about multi-generational legacy? That doesn't happen overnight. And so that was really the small changes. And then I look at the word refine, and I look at refining, the process of refining. And I think of gold and refining gold to make it pure. And the whole process behind the refiner's fire is they heat that gold up so high that the imperfections rise to the top, and you scrape those imperfections off, and from there, you now it is a refined piece of gold. It's worth more value. It's got clarity, and it's more purposeful. So I think that's the twofold approach of what refining is, of fine tuning, small changes. We're not talking about massive pivots. I mean, alcohol abuse for me, that was a massive pivot, but just little moves that I made along the way to just become just more refined. Does that make sense?
Yeah, dude, I love it. It's like just getting 1% better every day, like
Just
taking small little action steps. I know, Goody, you said you had so I don't do that word definition for the year, but I know, Goody, you said you had one for the year, right?
Yeah, and I think, so I've become very, we talk about this a lot in the Connect Man, but I've become, I've become anti-goal somewhat.
yeah,
And because, all you have to do really is make an assessment. What is the success rate? Do people typically, the process of creating a goal, and we talked about this yesterday, actually, I had no idea. I was doing a little research. I didn't realize January 17th was like a pivotal day. I didn't realize that was like the day that most people completely fall off of whatever New Year's resolutions that they've made. And I
right.
find that fascinating. I mean, it's like, barely 2 weeks into it. I thought it was a month, 2 months, whatever it was. But, I heard it. It was being advertised like, January 17th, today is failure day, or whatever it was, right? And,
Right.
and it was a small celebration for all of us that don't do it. So I've really stopped that. And I love how you highlight I love the idea of a word or a phrase because it adds, to your point, the refinement and the clarity. And so for me, it was discipline, right? And it's such a powerful word, but I started breaking it out. No
Yeah.
kidding. I spent hours to be like, okay, what does discipline mean to me? And where do I want this discipline? I want it in my spiritual life. I
Yeah.
want it in my physical life. I want it in my mental life. What are the things I'm bringing in? What are the things coming out? I want it my family life or my relational life. And so I broke it down to those 5 categories and just started putting, habits, not goals, but habits. Dating my wife, dating my kids, working out every day, breaking that down. What does that look like? And really creating something that which I love about your book, by the way, is that it's not like there are high level things in it, but it's a very action oriented, like bam, bam, bam.
Right.
Think about this. Have you considered this? Pray about these things. Like, have you considered the idea of even every day considering like where you want your children to go? Like all these different things that are just very, very actionable.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, right? To make it palatable, actionable, and small enough that we can do it every single day. And ultimately that's going to build on itself.
Yeah, and when you hear what I'm gonna get to, we're in lockstep on how you get the big picture and then you chip away at it otherwise, and then you throw accountability on it and watch it skyrocket, right? So that's the kicker. I guess for the audience, I mean, is there anybody else that has a word for the year that they'd like to share or a phrase that's jumped out for them?
This is the first year I've done a word. I did growth
Yeah.
because I just left my corporate job and was like, can't do this. I'm not doing anybody else's PowerPoints anymore. To hell with that. And I'm focused on growing my own business and doing my thing and kind of along the lines of what David was saying. I map out like 5 areas based on the hats that I wear. All the different roles I fill. What are 5 things that I'm going to prioritize? Fitness, things with the kids, things with my wife, things with my business. And then those form the basis blocks of my stuff so that I'm filling my cup and then I'm worried about everybody else's cup, which has been a huge shift because for years it was, I'm filling Uncle Sam's cup. And then Uncle Sam was coming over and drinking from my cup even after I filled his cup. And so now that's not I'm not doing that anymore, right? Focusing on the kids, making things better, focusing on my wife, grossing the kids out every chance I get, right? So that they see what it's like to be in love with your spouse. So anyway, sorry, I'm rambling, but I'm going to stop. Yeah, growth. That's my word.
Massive growth, huge. I saw Eric said humility on the chat. Thank you, Eric. I think we all need a dose of that, right? I mean, that's that's right where we're at. So thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Yeah, man. So I've got an icon.
Okay.
It's a balance icon.
Yeah.
And so am I balancing the time with my family? Am I balancing the time with my work? When I'm feeling anxious, it's usually because I'm out of balance. It's usually because like my kids, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. My kids want my attention and my work wants my attention and I'm not being balanced at all. So balance is the icon of the year.
Love it. That's what a great picture. Great picture. Anybody else? And I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. All right. So can everybody see what we got going on here?
Yeah, man.
So look, I guess I'm by fault. Stuart gives me a challenge, and I got logos created. I've got all kinds of things. So thank you,
An
man.
action taker.
So you see the bears over my shoulder here, the DadVoted bears. That logo to me, I mean, yes, there's a tie to Baylor. I went to Baylor. There's also the Papa Bear, and then you got the 2 smaller bears that represent my boys, and then of course the crown for the kingdom. And that's as I said earlier, trying to raise these little warriors to just be a little bit different than everybody else. And so that's where this refined father, and so really to answer the question, how to be a devoted dad in 2024, the answer is it's about you. It's about you working on you so that you can pour into others. We all have a servant heart, servant leadership. I mean, yes, I can use every buzzword and I believe in that. But at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't pour into others. And I look and I challenge you guys to do an exercise I just did, and I posted about it a week ago. I was sitting with my 13-year-old the other day, and I just said, let's think back 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I was 31 years old. I had just short sold my house in California. never missed a payment in my life. My credit score goes from 850 to, I don't even want to know, 600 and something. I'm living for myself. I'm living to please others. I am self-seeking. Just all these things that were secret living. Dad bod, my dad bod was coming on point, present but not intentional. And I just look at those things. My mission was about power, money, and status, and I was just failing and floundering. Sorry, but that was what was taught to me. You work hard. You're a provider. You make money. You climb the corporate ladder, and the rest of it you just figure out along the way. There's no guidebook. And I look at today of just complete different. 100% debt free. My house is paid for. I have a sports team of a handful of people that I walk with. 500 days sober. Published book. Thriving marriage, intentional family. And so that's that refining. There was only one really big pivot, and that was the alcohol piece. But everything else was just fine tuning. So when Stuart came to me and this word refined, I was like, man, there's got to be something here about a refined father. And what is a refined? How do you become a refined father? And so as I shift into this, it's really, and Stuart, I think I sent you the list. I had 33 things that compared a father versus a refined father. And I'll go through.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll go through some of these. A father is a title that's given. I mean, we all know how you can become a dad, whereas a refined father is a position that is earned. We talked nearsighted versus farsighted, and this isn't your sight. This is about your vision. About, are you just looking in front of you and around you? Are you looking out into the future? A father that is anxious and weighed down. I think our friend Jeff just talked about the weight of corporate America, and but yet a refined father, it doesn't say you have to quit your job to be that. It's calm and peaceful. I walk into my office today now, I delegate better, I hire better, and I come there on mission because I know that this is my little window to work and provide, but I also have a mission to serve dads as well. A father is often tired and burnt out, where a refined father is balanced and well. I think that the word balance that John or that he alluded to here. A father is a provider. A refined father is a guider. So we're guiding our kids. Present versus intentional. Fits in versus countercultural. Look, I'll be the first to tell you, we've drawn the lines in the sand. I don't. There are shows that I just don't. I've decided not to watch, and I don't fit in some of those conversations of. And I'm blanking on the show here. Oh my gosh. Anyways, the one that everybody's watching, but look, the first episode, there's Beth walks out of and she's naked walking away. That vision is ingrained in my mind, and so I don't. Those are decisions that we make. We don't watch rated R movies. My kids don't play Fortnite. Like those are, and nothing against those on this call that have allowed those things or don't see that. Look, The Simpsons is a great show. We don't, there's no wrong in that, but. My family is going to be countercultural in the sense that we're going to set standards and convictions, and we're going to be firm in those convictions. A father is unprepared. A refined father controls the narrative. Controlling the narrative, doesn't mean you know all the answers, but that means that you are guiding your kids. You're having those conversations. You're building the trust, so they come to you and say, "Hey, I saw the F word today," or "Hey, somebody said the N word today. Hey, I had that recently," and had to walk through my conversation with my kids on what that means and what that looks like. That means I've built trust that they're asking me versus asking Google. So those are the things that a refined father is controlling the narrative. I think Stu and Goot will applaud this, but a father is isolated. A refined father has a band of brothers around them, and that band of brothers through thick and thin do life together. Man, my buddy Stuart that I just said just beat cancer. We went on a lot of 4 and 5 and 6 mile walks, just doing life. And over the last year, I don't know what he's been through other than hell and back. But we've been locked arms, and I'd let him vent. And that's what men need. And we need that band of brothers. Then finally on this little list, says I love you versus shows I love you. I think that's a kicker in this day and age. And showing is not because of materialistic things that we're giving our kids. It's what values, what are we providing to our kids in the tangible. I actually hate the word legacy. This is hard. I hate the first definition of legacy. The first definition of legacy is the tangible leave behinds of money or property that you give to those that behind you. The second definition of legacy is that of intangible that is left behind in terms of your words, your what you've provided to them in guidance and support. So that's a strong to say I hate legacy. Look, I'm all about human capital, financial capital, intellectual capital when it comes to legacy. But I find it that the world's definition of legacy is first and foremost all about money and things, right? There's 27 other things that I've given the definition of what a father versus a refined father, and some of these aren't very far off. Some are, but some are very, very close in proximity. A father that's happy versus a refined father that's full of joy. Huge difference. Happy is based around circumstances. Is the weather good? Does my wife love me? Did I make the bonus check? Joy is a state that's a fruit of the spirit. That's no matter what's hitting you, whether the weather's bad, the bank account's full or empty, you have a sense of joy. So there are some I can share that list and maybe in an email follow up of what a full father versus a refined father. But really, just wanted to open this up to any thoughts, questions, challenges on my comparison chart here.
Dude, I love this, and one thing I want to highlight, and you said it, you touched on it. These lists are not super far apart, right? They're not unachievable. They should not be overwhelming, because I think, it's iterative, right? Like, one of the things we talk about all the time is, if you ever find that you're in a place where you're like, man, I made it, then your aim is way, way too low. And so it's just, but also the opposite side of that is, as you progress towards that man that you want to become, the refined father, the vision of that, as you set that vision through intentionality, what's amazing is you should also pause and reflect and give gratitude and acknowledge the steps you're taking to become that guy, right? The process you're making. So when I look at this list, it's very easy, I think, to be like, man, I am nearsighted. Maybe I'm middle-sighted, but I'm not far-sighted, or I'm definitely not calm and peaceful. But am I more calm than I was last year? 100%. Am I way more peaceful? Depends who you ask. I think I am. My kids may have a different opinion. And maybe I'm not far-sighted, but maybe I'm medium-sighted, right? And that's much better than being near or even reverse-sighted. And so I just wanted to emphasize, because I know your heart, dude, like, this is all, none of us are here. I'm highlighting refined, but dude, as we step towards that, and then the brotherhood that you talked about, like, we can encourage each other in that. Be like, hey, dude, how you doing? I'm great. Or hey, dude, I noticed you're doing these things, and it's freaking awesome. I just want to encourage you. This is super dope. Like, I sent a random stranger an encouragement on LinkedIn yesterday. I'm like, dude, I don't know you. You don't know me. You should come snowboarding on Thursday, but like, these are the three things I love that you are doing. Never spoken to you before. I love your focus here, 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 right? And so I think we can really do that for each other, and it helps us on that journey, man. And so I love this list, dude. I can't wait to see the whole list.
Yeah,
You said you sent it to you sent it to Stu?
He
yeah,
sent it to me and I haven't shared it with you.
Oh man, you know better than that, Kevin. You know better than that.
it was. I had a weak moment. I had a weak, I had a weak moment.
Now, well, Kevin, with your
By the way, he gave
permission,
absolutely no feedback. So, David, at least you would have given feedback. That's
Yeah, or he's like, oh, it looks good. That's his feedback
good.
on words. He's like, oh, it looks good.
And then I
That's
saw his
great.
post the last 12 days has been, oh, have you ever thought yourself as a provider or a guider?
I've stolen none of your content.
Anyways, I got a long list of them, and it's beautiful. I think really, and thanks, David, for chiming in there, because we're all really, really close. It's just, some of these we go back and forth. Some of these are a little bit of a check. And my kids would say certain things. Like, my son the other day told me, "Hey, Dad, I love that you're on mission, but don't forget to put your own mask on before you start trying to take care of others." I'm like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "Don't forget about us here at home." I'm like, oh, 13-year-old just drop kicked me. And but that's part of this as well. These are fluent. I even created a word and tell me if you think, I know Stuart probably already thought this was a word, but there's non there's the word nonchalant. Why is the word chalant not a word? I think that should be a word. So I mean, I'm create that we will make chalant a word. So that means we're on mission. We're going to battle. So
I love
um,
that.
Hey
I
Kevin,
love it,
let
man.
me speak on one that really has hit me, and it's actually something that we've been talking about as of recent in the Kinetic Man Mastermind. Is the difference between present and intentional. We've been on this topic of habits, and our challenge to all the men in the group was to just make it a habit of turning your phone off, or at least putting away your phone for 1 hour. Because I think a lot of us think we're present, as in like we're physically there in the house, or we're physically at dinner at the dinner table, or we're physically watching a sports event, but we have this little mini computer in front of our face, and we're not intentional about actually, emotionally being present, or just there with the family, there with your friend, there with them, without all these distractions of a simple device like a phone.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, it's a challenge. It is a challenge to to literally turn your phone off just for an hour every day. And some of the guys in our group are like, "Oh man, this is the hardest thing I've done."
Not crazy.
But I'll tell you, one of the things, and intentionality also allows you to ask really hard questions, right?
Yeah.
And one of the a great question that we can all ask ourselves with, and with the cell phone as a focus, but really presence as the focus is it better off for this group of people, my friends, my family, whoever it is that I'm currently in this room with, is it better off that I'm just not here if I'm going to be distracted, right? Like, it's a great question. And the answer could be yes. And it doesn't have to be like self-deprecating and flog yourself. It can just be like, you know what? I'm going to be intentional about, I have to respond to this thing. Kevin Goodnight texted me. Like, I have to respond to Kevin Goodnight's text because like he's the man. So maybe I'll just step out of the room and do that so that I'm not conveying to the rest of the people or whatever, if it's appropriate in that moment, how unimportant they are in that moment. Like, that's what they're receiving, right? Like, it just enables you to work through some more difficult questions, and then to be intentional and make decisions, not reactions, in the midst of that, that are beneficial for you and the man you want to become, and the man that you want to influence others, that they see. And again, you're just very intentional about it, and you can even address it, right? Like, as you start being intentional, you be like, hey guys, um uh I'm gonna I value this time, and I love you guys so much. This is something I have to take care of quickly. And you do it, right? Or you just don't. Or you just don't. And but the point is, it's not this constant reactionary thing that also sends a message. If you don't know if you don't know you're sending a message, then you're coming from a place of ignorance and just being wrong, right? Like, you are sending a message every time you do that. You might as well control that narrative.
Yeah, huge. And control the narrative is there as well. All right, my buddy, Mr. Steven, you got your hand up.
Yeah, it's so funny that's on this point. I think I texted you the other day about the chapter Device or Vice. I mean, literally, I read that and I was like, dang, I got to get my wife to read this. And I was like, because it hit me. I mean, four things out of that hit me right away. Dinner time, no phones, cutting the phone off between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Mine's set a little bit different because our ops manager likes to get in at 6, but
Yeah.
I'm up at 6 anyway. But I read through that and I'm like, I guess we're a week and a half in on it, and we're still trying to, like, intentionally, there's a word for you today, is intention, to basically abide by that chapter and look at things from a different perspective, instead of me on my phone at dinner waiting to answer a phone call from a customer. It makes no sense. Why does it have to be answered right now? And to step away and try and take a phone call shows my kids that they're not as important as a work call. And exactly what David was saying, it's like I'm showing them something without showing them.
Sure.
I'm doing something without actually knowing I'm doing it. And to hear it reiterated again, and then to think of that chapter in the book, is just I mean, it's powerful above and beyond anything that I can think of right now. And it's just another step for us, my family, me, to take care of, to read that chapter again and really do it. So
Yeah, love it, dude. Steven's a high performer for the company I work for, and one of the top 10 sales guys in the company, and we got a lot of them. So, and the look, even when we go to restaurants, I give my phone to my wife because it comes out of my pocket and it goes on the table. I have her put it in her purse. So that way I can't even be distracted to think about looking at a score, getting a text, just that look over, right, is enough to show that I'm not fully present. So something as little as that. And look, a couple weeks ago, I hosted a rite of passage ceremony for my 13-year-old, and there was 10 dudes sitting around the room, around the fire, and we all looked at each other and said, nobody ever did anything like this for us. And I'm not tooting my own horn. A year ago, I didn't even know what a rite of passage ceremony was, but it was me ushering in my son into manhood, saying, you're not a man, but you're on the journey to become a man. And these 10 dudes are going to walk with you. Some are going to walk a lot closer than others, and what that means. And so that's just, again, that's that extra step. That's what a refined father is doing that a father isn't. Not because they're a bad father. They just don't know, right? We don't do a rite of passage ceremony in the Western culture of standard Christianity. So anyways, that we could go on a tangent on that. So cool. Anybody else before I go to kind of where I know David's going to get excited on this next slide, because he's going to see that we've got Stuart. It's a lot of alliteration, so it's very basic for you, buddy. And then Dave,
Military guy, I got it.
all right. And then David's going to love it. So any other thoughts on this? And like I said, we can send that out as afterwards. Cool. All right. So how do we start becoming a refined father? It starts with the fruitful father framework, the 3 F's. And you're going to see a lot of F's as we go down this screen. And a lot of them, look, guys, this is pretty basic. I've tweaked it a little bit, but this is where we're going to battle, and I've added a couple more. So look, these are the 7 F's that I deem as vital to become a fruitful father who's taking care of yourself first. So this year I have a sheet on the top of it. I have a slogan: be more in 2024. Good, it rhymes. Okay, I know. Not do more. The word is refined: to enhance, upgrade, improve, develop, or boost. And then I have all of these things listed, and I have 5 or 6 things listed under faith. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to honor the Sabbath. Okay, so now I've written down I'm going to honor the Sabbath. So now I go into another sheet and go, okay, so what does that mean? That means I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to make sure that my family does this on what we call Sabbath, Summit Saturday, Summit Sunday. What am I going to do with friends? I have a men's prayer group I've started here. And then I'm going in and I'm lining these things out under fitness. I'm going to do single ingredient eating. So then, if you want to lose 10 pounds, you got to back your way into these. And I think the word, and it just so happens to be another F word, is about formations. It's about building formations in there, not goals, because this becomes overwhelming. Because anybody can write this on paper, but it's how do you back into this and go, okay, I need more friends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I do X, Y, and Z with this group of guys, and go from there. So this is kind of the framework that I've built out. And everybody talks about faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances, but the 2 that I think kind of hit me the biggest, well, where do I need to be? Where do I need to flourish, and where do I need to be fearless? So these are my stretch goals, and this involves starting the Refined Father roadmap, solidifying my trademark at DadVoted, establishing my speaking. These are things that I've got to take massive action to do, and I'm scared to freaking death of all of them, right? Because it's me stepping out of my comfort zone. And then the last piece is, where do I have fun? Where can I have some fun this year? Because I think we get so caught up in the day-to-day monotony, we forget to have fun. Is it going on a Kinetic Man trip? Is it doing something completely outrageous? Doing a family mission trips on our schedule this year. I've got another one that I'm fine-tuning, a little maybe RV trip across the U.S. to meet some guys like David and Stu. and do some fun things like that. And so really that's the backing into this. And this is what I start this whole roadmap is actually building this out. And look, here's the goal, guys. It's how do we move from a state of foolish to fullness to fruitfulness. And I presented this to my kid the other day. He said, "Well, where do you lie?" I said, "Well, I'm over the foolish state for the most part. I go back and forth between a fullness and a fruitfulness state. Fullness is being that state of being complete, being whole. And then fruitfulness is where you pour all that out onto others. And that's where legacy comes into play at work, at home, multi-generational legacy. That's when you start leaving behind pieces of you into your family, into your kids, into other people, and you live a much more bold life. So look, you're talking to somebody who 2.5 years ago was scared to death to write a book, and now has 3 books outlined, right? 1 published and 2 more outlined. And those things didn't happen. It was just, again, a fine tune. I had a wife that would sit there in tears every 6 months going, "You have to stop this alcohol abuse or it will be passed along to your kids." Here was that if I stayed on the path that I was on, that I was going to have a roommate situation as a wife, potentially a divorce, or I was going to have, and then second, that my kids were going to just one day view me as an ATM. And I've got 5 years left with one kid here in the house, and I've got 7.5 years with the other. And I have that opportunity. Again, not perfect. I freaking fail often. And I think I joked with you guys. I'll have a meltdown, and my son will go, "Well, what chapter did you write about blowing up, dude?" And so, anyways, this is the baseline of a 12-week program.
That's in book 2, punk.
Book 2. He asked me yesterday. Yeah. He's like, "Well, what's book 2 about?" So I started talking about that, and he's just trying to find out. He just didn't want to take a shower and go to bed. So he was asking me all these like deep questions about what I have on the docket. So yeah, the goal is, and I don't think I gave a good enough view, but it's bullet point a few things here, and then on a separate sheet, how do I improve my faith? Okay, for me, prayer, hard. So I have a beautiful quiet time every morning, but now I set an alarm at noon, and that just reminds me that I'm gonna just have a little prayer time, 5-minute prayer time at lunch, right? When I go to bed, my wife and I, probably the best thing for our marriage last year, towards the end, is we alternate each night. We say a prayer for each other. And look, some nights it is literally like, "Oh my gosh, it's Lord, thank you for my bride and get me some rest." But sometimes it's, "Lord, we need you, and we need you to provide for us like no other. We need our kids. I need you to provide a platform for our kids, for them to be great for you. I need you to open up the doors with a divine appointment." I mean, we're entering into prayer like it's just as our Heavenly Father wants us to. So, and so that's kind of this framework of a 12-week bigger piece that I've built out. And look, Stuart, all it took was you asking me to be on this call. Now I got a 12-week class coming out of this. So what can I answer or questions about the Fruitful Father framework?
Just real quick. So, and I think I want to make sure I understood it. As you created this framework, effectively and what's funny is a lot of these things, one of the things that just continues to hit me is it's not, none of this stuff is new, right? Like this is almost like our, the kinetic life circle. It's the execution of it that's unique, right? It's how you drive somebody to do it. It's what you do. It's if you do it in a group. It's all these things. But I'm curious. So with this specific framework, are you offering that within each category, just break it down into like, okay, faith, here's an ideal, and here's some action items to get to that point? Like, is that how you're breaking each of these sections down for yourself?
Yeah. So from each, like I basically have kind of a sidebar with faith, and then I have, okay, so how am I going to hit my 4 or 5 goals? And with that, it means I'm going to set this calendar reminder. I'm going to do this. How am I going to date my wife better? And we're going to do an every Thursday date night. We got the babysitter already. Well, we don't have a babysitter anymore, but if that's the case, babysitter on lockdown every Thursday night in advance, so that's how do you make these things come to fruition? Hello, another F word, baby. And really backing into these things so that it's not so overwhelming. So it's not a goal with an insight that you're going to either make it or, now some of these are pretty in depth on book number 2 I want to publish. Like I've got to have, okay, to publish this book, it's going to be 60,000 words. I want to get it to the publisher by this date so that it launches by Father's Day. So I back in, okay, that means I need to write 500 words a day, 6 days a week. That's 3,000 words. It's going to take me X amount of weeks to write, right? So that's how I back into, because people go, how do you run a high-powered job and commute 2 hours a day and lead dads and lead your family? You've got to be so strategic and more rhythmic than busy. And I say no a whole lot, right? And so that's how I work into this. So it looks like a lot on paper, but then I break each of those into bite size. And I'm working with a couple guys right now, and we spell it out. And then I have an accountability chart that goes with this. Okay, you said that for you to flourish this year, you want to start serving in children's ministry. So we're going to set a date. You're going to contact the children's pastor by, January 25th to see if you can start serving in that. And then I ask him, right? It comes into that standpoint. So really it's diving into this. And so for me, I'm new to the space of this is my framework. This is how it got me from where I was to where I am, not perfect by any means. And now how I see it taking off, and how we're having real conversations about legacy, empowering men to do great things, to step out of what the world says they should be doing, and that's only providing and making that paycheck, right? So that's kind of the baseline for it. I do want to give just a quick snippet of what it looks like for you guys, and because I love to bounce. This is kind of also more of my some of my planning stage, but it's a 12-week in your face deal. The Fruitful Father Framework, self before serve, kind of the first 4 weeks is that of building that foundation. And then you start building into the systems, formations, we call it formations, but the systems between week 5 and 8. And then we get into mission, vision, values, accountability, and legacy. So that's really the framework that I've built here, the Refined Father Roadmap. So just a quick note on that. Any thoughts, questions? I know Stu's already screenshotted it. He's already implementing it on.
I'm posting it on social media right now as my own.
It's its own. It's not trademarked. You can just go to town. So. If that's kind of where I'm at, fellas. And any just questions? Look, even questions of the whole thing about this, it is one-on-one. It's not a group at this point, because I'm walking with a guy right now who has a 1-year-old, and I'm about to walk with a guy who has a 13-year-old. Completely different conversations with those type of kids, guys. The 31-year-old with a 1-year-old versus the 32-year-old with a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. We're talking rite of passage. We're talking identity. The guy with the 1-year-old, we're just talking about how to survive the day, right? Just a whole different ball game of people. So that's why this is a customized approach of really partnering with men. Where are you at right now? Where do you want to be? And then how do we get there? And so that's the baseline of it.
Hey, Kevin, I want to give you a chance to answer Eric's question on chat. How do you go about finding faith again after being lost for so long? And it's an interesting question, because David, Stephen, and I were actually going through the faith conversation and a topic inside the mastermind too. We're preparing for next month, and I was actually up like listening and watching a John Mark Comer podcast at like 3 a.m. this morning about faith. And you have 2 on your formula of faith and fearless. And the definition of faith is basically believing in something without actual proof, right? Not necessarily, it doesn't have to equate to a God. Or Jesus, but just believing in something without actually having proof. And the opposite of that is fear. So being fearless is having faith. So I'm curious, with that in mind, like, how would you answer Eric's question of finding faith again after being lost for so long?
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. And just to ask that question alone is bold of all things, man, because it's a challenge, and we're up against a lot of things, and especially those that have been burned by religion. Like I had somebody recently tell me, we heard Kevin found religion and got sober and stopped partying, and I'm like, I didn't find religion. I actually hate religion. Religion is man-made. and men are flawed. And so for me, it's about a relationship. And each person's journey is different than others. I think just you asking that question, I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name, Stu.
Eric. Yep. Eric
Just by
Orbass.
Eric
Yep.
asking that question, it means that God is probably pursuing you. That would be my quest or my thought. And from there, I think it's worth having a conversation about. For me, I never read the Bible, and I had said a prayer or two, and I thought I was saved, and and I opened the Bible up one day and just said, Lord, have your word speak to me like no other. And I started reading it and starting in something as simple as James. And James just lays it out in my kind of like, I'm a simple, stupid kind of guy. And there's definitely some hard things. My challenge, and I don't know how to answer that without background to Eric's, where he's been, if it's been burned by the church, if it's just been, but I think God's pursuing him. And I think that's worth getting as much information as you can to get into a church, find a group of guys, and text me after this call and just start having the conversation of what does that look like? And by far, it is the richest, and I can walk the road. This refined fathers, it's not a faith-based per se, but when I start talking about identity, it's gonna your singular identity. Every single person is a child of God. Now, a lot of people may not accept that as their identity, but your primary identity is that you're a child of God. Your secondary identity is twofold. It's eternal or earthly. Your earthly identity would be your father, your husband. You sell commodity flooring to apartments and make a lot of money, like Stephen. But then you have that earthly, eternal identity. For me, it's that I'm a leader of dads. So I think a lot of people struggle with who they are, and that's why we're in this place of an identity crisis so much, is that they don't know who they are. Well, we're all are a child of God. Once you accept that you're a child of God and you press into that, then you start understanding that you're chosen, that you're dearly loved, that you're redeemed, that you're called, and then you can really roll into your secondary identity. So, Eric, I don't know if I butchered that or not, but man, I would say you're on a great path. Get around some dudes that want to wrap arms around you and speak some goodness over you and with you, man.
It is great, man. I mean, I think that's a great step. Step one is just surround yourself with some other guys that can pour into you. Hey, Kevin, before we end, go to the next slide for guys to write down your stuff and give us your contact information so guys listening to this in a future podcast can put it up, and we'll put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, look, DadVoted at Gmail, just simple if you want to email me anything. I do have DadVoted.com is as well to kind of hear some of my blogs and other things that are going on. I'm heavy on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's been a great platform for me to just speak truth and goodness and get after it from all aspects. I do run a business as well, and then of course running a little bit of some things on the side here with producing books and speaking and all kinds of good things. But yeah, books on Amazon. I don't know if they're motivated to sell my book right now, so they either have some overstock or something going on there. But it's on massive sale, like $8 or something. And then of course, or you can buy it from my shop. You have to pay a little bit more, but you get my bride will be happier because we have a whole closet full of books. But anyways, yeah, so that's really, and if you're interested in having a conversation about the refined father roadmap, message me, Refine Kinetic, and I've got a couple spots left for a February launch. I've got openings for a March start as well, and we'll have a 25% off discount for those that want to jump in this refined father roadmap.
Hey, Kevin, can I also give you the platform to talk about just some giving and service via your book to some organizations like Camp Hope?
Yeah.
And
It's
opportunity there.
Yeah, it's been I don't know how it came to it. I had a buddy Casey who wrote a children's book, and and he donated. He said, "You buy a book, I'll donate to a school." And I just had that great idea. There's so many people that want to support a local author who doesn't have this big, massive publisher with this massive marketing dollars. Sorry, John Mark Comer and I aren't, locked in arms quite yet.
Yet.
Yet. And so I just woke up one day and said, man, I went through recovery ministry. I would love to bless the recovery ministry that I went through with, well, actually, there's one called Rock Bottom Hope. And then we met through our church. He said, I want 50 books. I'll pay. And I said, well, let me put it out there to social media. And and I put it out there, and 115 books got donated overnight from people who going, I'll give 5 books, I'll give 10 books. And so I was able to bless his ministry. I've blessed the recovery ministry I went through. I've given them those books. And then Camp Hope is the PTSD Foundation of America, is a beautiful organization that I gave them a book 6 months ago, planted a seed, said, man, I don't know what y'all are, I know you have curriculum. Read this. If you think it's something that will be of value, let me know. And just a couple weeks ago, he said, we'll take 20 books. So Camp Hope is they're housing combat veterans facing severe PTSD. Their mission is to decrease the suicide rate in veterans. Their foundation, the PTSD Foundation of America, does some great things. So I think it was honestly, he said, can you get us 20 books? It wasn't I'm paying. It was kind of what can you do? I said, let me put it out to the world. And I texted him a day later and said, hey, we got 77 books that got donated. I said, I know you only asked for 20. He said, brother, we got over 200 men that will come through this program, faith-based. They don't take a lick of money from government because you can't proclaim the word of God. And we all know about healing and what a government program does versus a faith-based program. It's drastic, like 88% success rate versus about a 16% success rate. And I'm probably butchering those numbers. So he said, we'll take all 77 books. And so that's just been a great thing I'll be delivering those by the end of the week. And these are men, fathers, warriors who have been through hell and back too, man. And they're fighting an internal battle to save their families, their marriages, and with that, to lead the next generation of their kids. So we want to be able to be a resource to their kids so that more men and dads will live intentional, like we talked about, walk in, and regardless of the stage of faith or fatherhood they're in, right? And just go to battle against the enemy. The enemy has fatherlessness. Fatherlessness and abortion are the two secret games the enemy's playing. We're not paying attention to it as a society. It sucks. I'm not trying to get a political conversation today about either of those two topics, but it's the enemy has his claws in us from a fatherlessness perspective. My goal is to stop fatherlessness in the corporate America household where the guy is in the house, but he's not present. And that's my sect. It is a sect of fatherhood because you're looking at one that was living it and was on that path of just having a roommate and becoming an ATM. So got me excited, man. You got me fired up.
Love it, man. Yeah, and I was just there's multiple Camp Hopes, and I just looked up one. There's one here in Colorado, and the one I know that you're supporting is in Houston, and I'm sure there's more Camp Hopes around. But PTSD Foundation of America, fantastic organization, and if this is calling to you, and then reach out to Kevin and let's get some more books out there. David, you got anything else, Goody?
No, man, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Kevin. Every time we talk, you're a blessing. Love the content, love the book, and really more than any of that, just love your heart for you hit on two things that I'm extremely passionate about as well. And one really big one is this idea of fatherlessness and just there's some great TED Talks out there. I can't remember the names are skipping me right now. There's one if you Google TED Talk. Female lawyer, divorce lawyer on fatherhood. Like such a fascinating talk, but it really highlights the power of fathers and manhood, quite frankly, in our communities and society. You don't even have to be a dad. It's just living in your influence and pouring into those around you from a manly perspective and what that means, and really looking in the mirror and being like, look, this lie of manhood, these these clowns online that are pushing extreme, thoughts and womanizing and all this kind of stuff. That's not what men are, right? More men like this who are in this call need to step up and be like, hey, this is what manhood is, man. We're brothers, especially Stu. We cry. We're very comfortable in crying. We're very comfortable in emotion and pouring into others and walking, shoulder to shoulder, sometimes hand in hand and just doing life together. So, dude, I love it, man. Love your heart. Love just the blessing that you are to us and to all the dudes that you're touching. You don't even know all the dads and the men that you're touching them in a very profound way. You won't know that till you get to heaven and it's revealed to you there. So appreciate you, brother.
Love it, man. Appreciate you guys as well. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Love what you guys are doing as well. Keep up the good fight.
Thanks, my man. Well, I'll end the recording here. I know we're at the hour mark. If anybody needs to jump off, please do. But we can keep it going for just a little bit if anybody had any extra comments. Hey, before we let you go and tackle the day, we wanted to tell you about a new product coming out called the Manifesto. It's a newsletter. It's free. It comes out twice a month, and we give actionable steps, insights, and inspiration to help you on your journey to becoming a better man. We aim to be the highest value per minute email in your inbox every time. So go check it out. You can go to thekineticman.com/newsletter. Again, that's thekineticman.com/newsletter and sign up for the Manifesto. It is going to be awesome. See you.
Thank you for listening to the Kinetic Man podcast. If you are growth-minded, community-focused, and willing to take uncommon action to redefine success and live an abundant life, visit our website at www.thekineticman.com to see all the ways we can connect.
Yeah, and on our website, you can find more information on everything we're doing, like joining our meetup page to get the details on our webinars and our local Thursday gatherings here in Colorado. From our site, you can also find more information on and sign up for the next Kinetic Man retreat and the next house of our mastermind group. Finally, we always appreciate your love and support. Please share this episode and go rate us on your favorite podcast player of choice.
Thank you again. Now go take uncommon action.